Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to ABZU. Now this is a game by the art director behind the PlayStation 4 games The Journey as well as Flower. And if you know about those games, if you've played them before, then you'll certainly know what to expect from this. It's very much a story focused game, it's very much about the trip itself, down here below the oceans. So this is the PC version. I played this on Steam. And yeah, it's very much about the experience rather than the gameplay itself, as it were. And it's not entirely about the journey below the ocean. There's something very strange going on here, something perhaps paranormal, something perhaps mystical, or perhaps more to the point, something mythological. After all, the game's description over on Steam does mention that the game's name gets its root from mythology, Ab meaning water, and Zu meaning to know. I'll admit my ignorance though in not knowing precisely what mythology that actually comes from. So in ABZU we play a deep sea diver. Not sure what time period this is from, but it may well be futuristic considering the guy doesn't have any type of oxygen tank and you can spend pretty much infinite amount of time down there underwater. You never run out of oxygen. But that largely seems to be besides the point. The entire point after all is the journey. Now as you can see here, I am playing this on an Xbox controller. You can play it on keyboard and mouse, but personally I find for these types of games controller to be far superior. So the journey through the world of ABZU takes you ever further into the depths of the oceans. You start off here, as you can see, in a very shallow environment, and one of the greatest pleasures of the game is interaction with the life and the animals around. And this generally comes in both forms of schooling as well as shoaling fish. And as we get further into the video, you'll see a very good example of this. One of the most impressive visual feats actually that I've seen in any game. I'll even go as far to say that the behaviour of the fish, and indeed all the other animals in this, are not only extremely believable, but they feel as though they've been lifted directly out of real life and placed into the game itself. As we move further on into the game, both the interactions with the wildlife as well as the richness of the environments itself become ever more complex, and to be perfectly honest, I find that these sorts of environments to be a true thing of beauty. Not everyone is going to be a fan of this type of visual style. It is after all quite cartoony, quite cel shaded I guess is the word. But this really isn't a distraction for me. In fact, it really does enhance what the game is all about. In terms of gameplay though, there really isn't a whole lot going on. The majority of it involves you simply swimming around, exploring and going from place to place. Now if you're an explorer in games, then you're going to have a field day with this. As I say, most of the environments are truly beautiful. For the most part, the focus of gameplay comes down to rather simplistic puzzles, and these are interspaced throughout different areas of the game. You'll need to solve these in order to progress on to the next areas, which ultimately are locked behind doors of various types. In fact, sometimes once you've solved some of these, the transitions to the next environment can be rather wonderful and somewhat unexpected when you first encounter them, and this really does go into the mythological background of what the game tries to convey. The game then, as pointed out, is very much about the journey, but the pacing of this journey can change dramatically depending on what's going on at any given moment. At times, more often than not, it's extremely tranquil, and it can explore the environments to your heart's content, but other times the pacing picks up and you'll find yourself rushing through caves and canyons and all manner of other underwater environments, some of which can be extremely exotic. But as you can see, as with all the other environments, it really is the fish and the life around you that makes this so compelling. It's kind of strange in a way, because had I been told a game with just fish might be interesting to swim around, I really wouldn't have believed it. But just look at this. This for me is perhaps one of the most impressive gaming moments I've ever seen. The way these fish behave is, well, very realistic and pretty much almost unbelievable. It's something you have to experience, something you just have to try out. In fact, I spent ages just swimming around this school of fish. And surprisingly, it really doesn't hit performance too hard. You may notice a few frame rate drops depending on your setup, but for the most part it seems optimized well enough that it can handle this pretty easily. Now, not everything is about masses of animals. Sometimes it's about size, and things don't really get much more massive than a whale. And again, despite these being so huge, they do behave in a way you'd expect them to behave. In fact, the quality of animation all throughout ABZU is to an extremely high standard, and it's something I think nearly everyone will be able to appreciate. Now, it's not entirely about natural-based underwater environments. There are a high number of artificial and even man-made environments. Some of them seem to be alien in nature perhaps, but more for that later on, and I really don't want to spoil things too much. But as you travel through the world, you'll find lots of man-made structures, and some of these are in the form of extremely ancient buildings. The style of architecture can vary wildly, and at times you'll feel you're in something like ancient Rome, and other times you'll find yourself feeling as though you're in ancient Egypt. But wherever you are, it really is the changes in the styles and colours of these environments that mark a sense of progress through the game. Yes, it's very linear, and perhaps for some it's a little too linear. But the fact of coming out of a cave and being confronted by a living environment like this one really is unrivaled in pretty much any other game. Yet for me, it really is the lack of gameplay that can be quite a problem. What many would argue it's the journey that's important and not the gameplay when it comes to this, I just can't help feeling that there should be, or could perhaps be, a little bit more to it. The puzzles that are here, after all, are a little bit too simplistic. And after a while, I found myself just wanting to push forward to the next environment time and time again, almost as though I had to try and rush through the content. And with a price tag of £15, it is a little bit hefty for that style of gameplay. Yet, all that said, it's the environments, it's the journey, which truly are stunning. And if you enjoy this type of game, if you've ever played Flower or The Journey or wanted to play them, then I think you'll find this to be very, very special. And to be honest, things do shift up a gear a little later on, at least in terms of environments. But I don't want to get too much into that because it would mark a pretty hefty spoiler, but you do see a few glimpses of that right here. So then, bottom line, for me, as you all know, I really do enjoy anything that's about exploration, and ABZU does really fulfill that criteria. However, on some elements, its lack of gameplay does become a bit of a problem. So from that point of view, it really is a trade-off between looking for gameplay or looking for exploration. And if you're looking for wonderful areas to explore, then this is really fantastic. But on the other hand, if you're looking for truly deep gameplay, then you may want to look somewhere else. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.